So here's a little poem here that Pleb Poet, if you know her from Pleb Lab, she wrote. She was at our seminal event in BitBlock Boom in August, and she got to play around with it, and she came up with this little poem to kind of summarize the entire thing. So I'm not going to read it to you, but the basic point is that I created this thing that is purpose-built for teaching meetups or families or corporate environments how to use Lightning Network. And so it's a very safe regtest environment. So it's just useful for meetups primarily. So again, my name is Derek Smith. I organize the Old City Bitcoiners in Florida, in St. Augustine, Florida. If you want my contact information, it's farscapian.com/contact. You guys know, have you ever seen this show here? No. So it's an old show in the 90s on Sci-Fi Channel, and it was called Farscapian, and that's where I got my name. Okay, so I have a few open source projects that I work on. I want to mention the first is Sovereign Stack, and that allows you to create value for value websites that accept Bitcoin and Lightning. So you can create multiple websites, self-hosted, all on a residential internet connection. And so I have a bunch of examples out there, so check out farscapian.com and /portfolio, and it'll list all of those websites out there. You can check that out. Scroll to the bottom, and you'll see a little tip button, and you can see what that's all about. And then the second project is Bolt 12 Prisms. I was part of bitcoinconference last year, and we did the hackathon, and we ended up winning the hackathon for Bolt 12 Prisms. So that's the second major project, and then finally LNPlay, which I'll talk about in a minute. Under here you see 3 websites, all of which are related to LNPlay. We'll primarily be looking at lnplay.guide, but I'll talk about the others as well. Okay, so what is LNPlay? This is a Lightning Network playground. I like to call it a simulation tool. It creates private Lightning networks. These are basically regtest networks. It's all on a single VM, and all of those QR codes that I've handed out allows you to, you can go ahead and scan those if you like, and open up the links, and it'll bring up Clams Remote, which is a remote control for core Lightning. And so when you bring that up, you should see 1 Bitcoin there, and later we'll move out to the foyer here, and we'll go ahead and play around with it. You'll have to scan QR codes of your neighbors and talk to them, so we'll move out there so we don't disturb the other folks here. Okay, LNPlay is open source, no licensing, 100% backend software. So when you click that link, you'll open Clams Remote. Clams is a separate open source project, but what Clams is connected to is LNPlay. LNPlay is a back-end piece of software that deploys 1 Bitcoin core node, and then as many core Lightning nodes as you want. And it puts all of those core Lightning nodes on different port numbers and exposes them on TLS so you can securely connect. And all of these core Lightning nodes are connected to the same overlay network. So when you go around the room and open channels, things are nice and quick. We got 5-second block times, so confirmations occur nice and quickly, and you don't have to wait on testnet or signet or something like that. And then the software also will generate these QR codes that you see here, and so you can do these at meetups or conference events or what have you. The use cases and users here, I mentioned education is the major one, meetups, conferences, corporate events. We'll talk about this a little later, but we can also do core Lightning plugin development. That's related to the lnwidget.guide. We're on that later. LNPlay can also be used as an integration or a staging environment. So if you have a corporate entity that's developing your Lightning application or core Lightning plugins, you can use LNPlay as an integration and staging environment. There's 3 primary user groups that I define on the website. The system owner, that's the individual who deploys the software. the simulation user, that's you guys right now, scanning the QR code and going around the room and opening channels and such. And then the hackathoner, so you can use all of these connection information that is embedded in that QR code, and you can use it to develop core Lightning plugins or front-end widgets using LNPlay. Okay, so the origin story here, I mentioned, first of all, I organized the Old City Bitcoiners in St. Augustine, Florida. I met one of the creators of Claims Remote, which is the web app that you're using on this. And so I just started playing around with Claims Remote, trying to self-host it. Now, of course, Claims Remote requires core Lightning as a backend, so I added that, and Bitcoin Core, of course. But then we went to bitcoinconference last year, and we did the whole 12 thing, so a natural progression there then is to deploy multiple core Lightning nodes that are all kind of on a dedicated network so they can communicate directly with each other. And so what came out of that is a website called regtest.guide / the entire website, regtest.guide. But if you check out the demo there, the website is using LNPlay to provide the infrastructure for the demo. So if you go there, go ahead and read it, and you can open up Claims Remote. And if you have 5 volunteers, like at a meetup, you can have them open this website, and you can test payment splits. So that's kind of a fun exercise at a meetup. Just get 5 volunteers, pay Bob, and everyone else that's on downstream of that will receive a payment split. So it's a good way to show people how to use that technology there. Okay, so after we did that, D++, she's an educator in the space. I don't know if you guys know her, but she did a Lightning LAR presentation. She was using mainnet at the time, and it just really didn't go very well because of the slow block times, and there was congestion at the time. And so we worked together to kind of scale the system up so we can deploy over 200 core Lightning nodes and have a large conference event, do these types of events. So after that, we've done a number of meetups. We're doing some more meetups in a couple of weeks coming up. At devconf 2023, we started a hackathon team to basically create a website, LNPlay.live, that allows anyone to purchase a hosted LNPlay environment. So instead of having to spin up a VM and install and configure the software, you can just make a Lightning payment and you'll get QR codes like you're seeing here that you can hand out to your meetup members. And so it's just really lowers the barrier to using the software and teaching people. Now that part is not quite ready yet, I'm still developing that, but I hope to turn on the button here in the next month or so. D++ did another event at Unconfiscatable, and I'm currently involved in Top Builder at PlebLab for this project, pushing it forward. We got to round 2. Round 3 will be determined tomorrow, so hopefully we'll make it. And then, so we're doing this event, and then we're also doing one at Bitcoin Atlantis and Madeira. Okay, I mentioned Top Builder, but it ends March 14th. Hello, can you hear me? And these are the projects that are out there. Clams is among them. We're competing against each other, essentially. But I do use Clams as part of my application, so I really appreciate those guys. And definitely, if you get a chance, check out these other projects. Very interesting. Okay, the features. I kind of covered some of these, but you can run LNPlay in mainnet mode. And I have one node that's running mainnet, and it's working pretty reliably, actually, but I don't actually recommend it for individuals because I don't really know the security of the entire system. So I would recommend a more secure mainnet implementation. But for testing and development purposes, I think this is a good approach. You can deploy a number of plugins, Bolt 12 Prism, something called the Reckless Wrapper. Are any of you familiar with Reckless? Okay, so that's just a Python script that's provided as part of core Lightning, And if you use it, you can download and activate core Lightning plugins using the REST API. So this reckless wrapper essentially exposes that functionality to the RPC users. It also includes support for Tor for mainnet nodes. You can deploy clans remote in a self-hosted manner. Now, what we're using today, you're using clans remote's infrastructure. So you'll notice the first part of that URL is remote.clans.tech. We can do custom node aliases and colors, and we can create these clans connect QR codes here. So the main website that we've been working on in the last few years is LNPlay.guide. And it documents the project and provides resources for anyone who is wanting to self-host. So you definitely need to run through this if you're going to do a large event. LNPlay.live is really for smaller meetups. We just don't have the infrastructure to run large stuff, so if you're going to do a large event, you have to run on AWS. We provide hosting, installation, deployment guide, how you can monitor your instance, a functional test plan so that you can understand how the system operates and to getting started. Now, I kind of mentioned RoyGDiv.guide. Creating this website is really the reason I created LNPlay Guide or LNPlay in the first place. The Lightning Warp stuff is how I scaled it out to 200, 400 nodes. But essentially, LNPlay is just a bunch of bash scripts. And all of these bash scripts, they produce YAML files, Docker, Nginx configurations, a bunch of these little artifacts that you can use to stand up some infrastructure. It builds Docker images, things like that. All right, so this is a little bit more about RoyGDiv. So I do have a couple of things in here, channel setups. What we're using today is channel setup equals none, so there are no existing channels. But you can set it to Prism, in which case the Prism channel layout that you see here will be established. And so I use LNPlay for developing the Vault 12 Prisms. Now, of course, you can use whatever system you want, but this is my preferred mechanism here. We also developed, and not me, a separate project, developed a channel graph visualizer. So using the same method that we use on clams to connect to a core Lightning node, we can do this and pull down the channel graph and draw it into a browser window. And so I'll take my laptop out there, and as everyone opens channels, I'll refresh it, and we'll see the channel graph grow, hopefully. Now, one thing I wanted to mention, we also support CLBOSS, which is, it automatically creates channels and does balancing and liquidity management. And so when you turn CLBOSS on in a regtest environment, this is the channel graph that gets created. Now, all of these channels are unbalanced, but I think in the future we'll be able to do dual funding and create a simpler channel graph. So you can see that, CLBOSS is definitely doing its job. Okay, so LNWidget. Now, the last couple months for Top Builder, we've been extending LNPlay to support application development. And so we created LNWidget.guide, and it provides a number of blog posts that allow you to develop core Lightning plugins and web apps using LNPlay. Now, of course, all you're doing is connecting to core Lightning, so it doesn't have to be LNPlay. But we make it easy with the reckless integration to do that kind of development. So if you all are all interested in the hackathon and you don't have a team, please take a look at LNWidget.guide. I have a few hackathon ideas out there that might be useful to use LNWidget. I don't know how I'm doing on time, but you can host it in a Ubuntu VM. We document everything from VM sizing to firewall rules to SSH and DNS. It's very simple to install. Once you get a VM, you just run a few commands, it clones everything down. You configure it using just a standard configuration file. Anything defined here will override what's in the default configuration. So you can see here we just set up an instance for Bitcoin, my partner on Top Builder. He is a meetup organizer for this meetup in Alabama, and he just did an event last night. Okay. I mentioned earlier that it produced all of these files, and these are just some of the examples here. Up, down, we can purge, so if you're doing local development, you can run down -- purge, and it'll reset your environment clean, which is very helpful. Yeah, so it just produces all of these files and brings up your infrastructure. Okay, so now everything is in one VM. Each core Lightning node is basically a container running, a Docker container. All of the Nginx configuration is routing the requests to the proper core Lightning node. Everything is terminated with TLS, and we're using Let's Encrypt for certificates. I'm exposing the WebSocket interface on core Lightning as well as the REST interface. So WebSocket starts at 6001 and REST is at 9001. And yeah. I mentioned LNPlay Live, so maybe we can skip this, but I do want to mention I'm using my other project, Sovereign Stack, to deploy these LNPlay instances to my own cluster. So there's this project called Incus. Has anyone ever used LXD or Incus? Okay, these are virtual machine managers, so you kind of think of it as like the command line interface to EC2. Bring up a new VM, create a network, attach storage, these types of things. And so Incus is a new fork of LXD, and I use Incus to do all the provisioning of these LNPlay instances. Now again, this isn't quite live yet, but hopefully in the next month I'll be turning it on. Okay, so I got through that. I'm not sure I am on time, but we're gonna stop here and we're gonna move to the foyer because it's gonna be kind of loud, everyone talking to each other and scanning QR codes, so we're gonna try and get out of the way of everyone else. But this is the general approach that we take. I suggest that we all get in groups of 3 to 5 people, and those individuals should open channels to each other. Go ahead and try to get those channels balanced by making payments, either Bolt 11 or Bolt 12. And you can use the withdrawal function as well on Bolt 12. And then after you've established balanced channels among your smaller group, you can venture out and try opening channels to other smaller groups, and then try to balance those channels. It's not going to be perfect, but the thought here is that if we can get balanced channels during this event, for those people who want to use LNPlay for the hackathon, they'll have balanced channels and all of that infrastructure ready for the hackathon. All right, so let me just see here. This is just kind of a visual of what we're going to try to do. So again, just small groups, data circle. And I have a feedback form. So after we're done with this, if you go to lnplay.guide/start, that's on your card there. At the bottom, there will be a feedback form, and I ask everyone if you enjoyed it or if you had an issue, please provide feedback. When you do, provide your Lightning address, and you'll receive some sats for completing the survey. Okay, so I'd like to shout out to the VLAS Commerce. They're the ones who provided that mechanism. They're also a member of Top Builder. Okay? So let's go ahead and pick up, go ahead and grab your cards, and let's go to the foyer and go ahead and play.